Welcome back to Frankly Speaking with me, JJ Tabane. We're not live tonight, and once again to our Christian viewers, a happy Easter to you. Commissioner, one of the key worries in society is that there is an overemphasis on public sector corruption and a less emphasis on private sector. And hence, that's why a lot of people would see your work that you are doing as at least contributing to changing that picture. But you were in Parliament last year, and there seems to be an issue with the funding, the funding levels of the work that you do, because you got to do investigations, you got to, you almost to operate like a law enforcement agency with all the resources that are required. Can you address me a little bit on the funding levels of the work that you are doing and whether it's adequate to be able to meet these expectations of society?
This is something we are working on. You'll remember that the Commission has really only in the past few years that it has acquired this prominence and even prioritization by government. And so if you look, for example, at the structure we have, the number of people we have, the levels at which they are, these were decided more than 10 years ago. So there is a need to catch up to make sure that we have the right type of talent as well as resources. I mean, we can never match the private sector. That's not our ambition. Because in one case they are able to bring 10 lawyers, but at least we must be able to bring, if we are bringing 1 or 2, they must be highly competent, and we must be confident that they will be able to do a good job. So yes, there are issues around funding that we are discussing with government right now. I think we've also have plans to work much smarter. The work we've done, the successes we've had are largely due to the internal staff of the Commission that are very young, a lot of black professionals coming through. So I'm very proud of what we are able to do with what we have, but I think we can do with a little more.
You're fining people billions, and is there no link in terms of the money you are bringing in via these fines and the levels of funding that you could go and argue for? And secondly, is there political will, in your view, to try and put you in a different category of funding by the political leadership that to whom you are accountable?
I think there is. The Commission has been, the competition authorities have been prioritized. I mean, if you look at the State of the Nation address by the President, we appear in the plans of government around data costs. We've had our own Minister Patel. He doesn't complete a speech in Parliament without talking about the important work that the Commission has to do. So I have no doubt that it's receiving priority. But of course, at this time, I wouldn't say that I'm satisfied with the funding levels, and this is something that we are discussing. But certainly there is a political will and political support for the work we do.
Let's talk about how you locate the Competition Commission in terms of economic development. I mean, you have seen that, I mean, there's been almost zero growth of the economy over the last probably decade or so, right? And we keep revising the targets and so on. How do you analyze the state of economic development in relation to the work that the competition is doing?
Of course, there's been a lot of concerns about the South African economy. I just came back from India. India still has a lot of challenges. It's growing at 7%. And we've seen similar levels of growth in developing emerging markets, particularly from the East. So there is an acknowledgement that we certainly have not reached our potential. We have a strong base. If you look at similar countries like us, we have strong infrastructure, but we have very high levels of exclusion. So a lot of people are not participating and contributing to the kind of economy that we could have. So one of the things that have been highlighted, not just by ourselves, we've done a study ourselves, but the OECD and the World Bank have also highlighted the very high levels of concentration in our economy. I mean, in every sector you can think of as you sit here. You would battle to count more than 5 firms that are competing. Whether you're going to talk retailers, you can only count 3. Really.
So there's a lot of monopolies, and that excludes
you count banks, you
other
count
people.
mobile phones, any major sector in the economy, including infrastructure. And what that does is you have a lot of monopolization, which means that you have lack of innovation and a lot of inefficiency, apart from high prices that monopolies tend to charge. So we have a structural problem that has to be resolved. And part of resolving it is making sure that there is entrance, and entrants are sustainable. They are able, so we have to create conditions as policymakers and regulators for challengers to come in, so that even black people and women, historically disadvantaged groups who want to get into the economy, they don't just get co-opted by the incumbents. You know, I think there was a time when we needed black people to be involved in big firms, obtain a 25%.
Which was the whole approach of PEE initially.
Yes.
Where you looked only at firms that existed and you patched some black people there to own some shares, and then the ability to start stuff from scratch is stunted in that way.
Yes. So that's why now there's talk of black industrialist program. So what you want out of that program is people who are not just extracting rents from existing companies without contributing, but people who create businesses and wealth, new wealth. That's the only way you can grow the economy. So, and that's the way you can also diversify it, by the way, because you're going to find historically disadvantaged groups being able to enter markets if conditions for entry are such that the barriers are lower.
The existence of cartels and what they simply are continuing to do will obviously close that door, because they will create, as you said, an all boys club. I mean, you're talking, what, some 100 cases that are being investigated. Surely it means that we are battling to break that culture of exclusion, even after 24 years of democracy.
The important thing is to keep opening the economy. You know, we have a closed economy in this country, although we're saying it's a free market. But when you look at it, actually, we've replaced what was public regulation. If you talk about agricultural markets, there was a lot of regulation there. You couldn't market your own product. We've sort of replaced that with private regulation, because the firms are still able to do what government was doing on their own. What you want is to truly break that, and that's the only way you are going to be able to get other people getting into those markets. Let me give you an example of what we are doing recently. Let
me just cut in there. I want us to go into an example, and of course, amongst other things that you're dealing with just recently is the same monopolies in the media industry. So after the break, I want us to just zone into that so we can try and understand it better. Now, frankly speaking, we are with Tembinkosi Bonakele, the Competition Commissioner. After the break, we explore some more issues related to the economy and the competition.